Take this job and shove it. I ain't working here no more. Everybody's working for the weekend. Taking care of business every day. Now it's wow, welcome to the working week.
Working 9 to 5, what a way to make a living.
Minimum wage.
Welcome to another edition of the Working Lunch. I'm Jeff Turgeon, your host for the next fun-filled and fact-filled hour. As you know, the Working Lunch is a project of the Central Mass Workforce Investment Board, which oversees the public workforce system here in Worcester and 37 surrounding communities in southern Worcester County. As folks out there can probably note, I've got a bit of a cold, but
Feeling a little under the weather today?
well, you know, I'm not feeling too bad. I think my vocal quality might not
It
be
translates well to radio, though. It's got a nice,
It's got a little
rasp,
nasally,
little, Wolfman Jack. to it.
So I do want to welcome everybody.
Good afternoon.
Co-host.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to say hi to everybody, too. I'm Sean McGauley, Jeff's co-host. I'll be joining you this afternoon as well.
And also in studio is our production manager, also
Producer
colleague,
extraordinaire.
producer extraordinaire, also our colleague at the CMWIB, Bob Zakowski.
Good
And-
afternoon.
Now that's the voice I need.
Yeah, that's good. That's radio.
That's
ready.
radio, yeah. So I do want to introduce our guest. We have a guest right off the bat here, Frank Kartheiser. Frank's from Worcester Interfaith, and I want to welcome you to the show. Thanks for coming over to the studio today.
Good afternoon, Frank. Yeah, we'll be sharing a microphone here and getting real intimate.
Hey, Jeff, Sean, Bob, the whole gang. What's happening at the WIB? It's not safe. The whole team is down here, huh?
Well, you know,
Autopilot.
we've got it covered. I don't want to say how. I don't want folks out there to know the
Well, that's
security
true.
measures that we've put in place.
It's only the men who are here, so I'm sure it's well.
All right, now you're going to get me in trouble, aren't you? Okay, well, thank you for being here, Frank. I appreciate it. Can you tell us a little bit and tell the audience out there about Worcester Interfaith and what you do there?
Sure. And again, thanks for having me here. I'm the lead organizer of Worcester Interfaith, a coalition of 20 or so churches, synagogues, neighborhood groups. The chaplain's office up at Holy Cross, our members, dues-paying members. And that dues base allows us to have the freedom to respond to the issues and challenges facing the families in our member institutions and in our community. Our goal, we get often confused with the Interfaith Hospitality Network, which is does good work around housing and sheltering. But as a community organization, we're looking to bring our members and residents together to have the power, the clout, the muscle to work on the issues that are important to their families.
So really, it's an advocacy group for the faith community. Would that be a good?
No, I think that's a little narrow, and I think it's beyond advocacy. I think organizing kind of gets to how do we really not speak just for others, but how do we speak for ourselves? How do we get our own voice? And how do you learn how to do these things? How do you learn to get what you need for your family? You learn how to do it by doing it. And so that's a step, I would say, beyond advocacy. And we started off as mostly religious organizations, but realized that we needed to be broader. We want to look like the city. We want to be inclusive and touch as many families as we can. So that's led to broaden it to neighborhood groups, community organizations,
Sure.
the like.
Well, I know we do a lot with you and appreciate the efforts that you put forth on issues that relate to workforce development and the local families that are looking to get a leg up in the workplace. Now, one issue that we share common cause with quite frequently is the importance of youth employment. And do you want to talk a little bit about your work on around the issue of youth employment?
Sure. Let me just say first how we got into it. 7 or 8 years ago, we did a house meeting campaign, relational meeting campaign, where we went out, we talked to about 400 folks around youth. I can remember the time it was when Tim Murray was the mayor, actually. And so we went out and listened to what was important to our families for young people, and we focused on young people because if you talk to politicians, you talk to a lot of folks about what the issues are. They often say public safety or crime, but you go into a church basement or a synagogue hall or a neighborhood group, they're usually talking about youth, what's going on with young people. So we did a campaign just to hear about that, and we heard a whole lot of things around community school, after-school programs, mentoring, a lot of things. But one of the things that came up that was really urgent was youth jobs. And so we picked up the mantle of that and tried to do some research and learn more about what was happening. And that's kind of how we got our start into that. And just a piece about that, as we looked around for youth jobs, we found a line item in the budget, in the state budget, called YouthWorks, about $4 million for youth jobs for poor and low-income young people. And so when we looked at the budget, the $4 million, we started meeting with our legislators and tried to learn more about it. So for the $4 million, and this is probably typical, of the $4 million, we asked, well, how's it split up? Well, Boston gets $2 million, and the rest of the state gets $2 million. Well, whoa. What's that about? And they said, so we pushed a little harder. Well, why does Boston get $2 million? Well, because we're Boston. So we didn't think that was really, adequate kind of response. So we pushed the first year with Representative Jim Leary, with the whole delegation, and with the mayor at the time. And Worcester was getting about 167,000. And the next year, after we started working on it, we doubled it to 305,000 coming into Worcester. So it was a good first effort for us.
Yeah, and certainly on behalf of the board, which oversees the YouthWorks program, it's been great to have you as an ally and really kind of, looking at this issue and putting it on the public's front burner. I know beyond the equitable distribution of those resources, one of the things that you've done a great job of organizing over the years is the youth rally on the State House. And again, this year, had a great crowd that gets, really kind of front and center. They get to see democracy in action. So it's really a win-win for the young people. It's great, a chance to see how representative government is responsive to, organizing and community issues. Do you want to speak a little bit about the State House rally?
Yeah, it goes to your earlier point around advocacy. And so I'm not out there to speak for youth or to speak for families. I expect that if this is important to people, they're going to shut off the TV and they're going to get it to participate. So how do you learn how to increase funding and get adequate amounts of dollars for youth jobs? How do you learn how to do it? Well, you learn how to do it by doing it. And so part of it was meeting with legislators and all that, but a component that you're pointing out was, could we mobilize statewide 1,000 young people to get to the State House to press the issue? And I think this was our fourth rally this year. We took a busload from Worcester. We have a new state rep, Mary Keefe, who helped educate young people around the political process. Took the bus in and rallied. It's always a fun day. Rallied with a bunch of folks and then got out and met with all of our delegation that's been incredibly supportive, and we can talk about that a little bit. But we also met with the chairs of the Senate and House Ways and Means. Well, why would you meet with those folks? What's that about? So you got to teach democracy and let them know that Ways and Means, that's where the budgets come from. The governor's got his budget, and this year he's got 11 million in his budget for youth jobs, which is up from last year. But if we can't get the House and Senate along, get their budgets to reflect that, we're not going anywhere. So the young people learning about what the Ways and Means, what the Speaker, the Senate
and the process
President,
in general. Yeah,
exactly.
For those that are just tuning in, we're talking with Frank Kartheiser from Worcester Interfaith and about their work that they're doing in the community around the issue of youth employment. Frank, I know on April 2nd, we're having an event at Worcester Technical High School the morning of April 2nd. Folks from Commonwealth Corporation, there's going to be an employer panel and some others discussing again, this topic of youth employment, and you've talked about how you came through your organization to kind of identify it. Are there any other issues or activities that you want to highlight today on the show?
No, not issues or activities, but the process, I think, is important to think about. This isn't just about money. Money's important. But what we're trying to do in Worcester, what we've been doing and what we want to continue to do, is make this more relational work. You know how this can work sometimes. The state has money, it's coming in, youth have jobs. And then the money dries up, and then youth don't have jobs. Well, that's
Right.
just a bad system. Young people need jobs. As you know, we're at the highest youth unemployment that we've
Right.
ever been at in this country right now, the highest youth unemployment. And so we're trying to put in place a relational network where we know each other, we know employers, we know who's can do youth development. So if the money gets tight, we still have a system in place where people are going to step up and try to make sure that our young people have these opportunities to learn the habits of paid work. So you have all the youth serving agencies, but you have the WIB here, you folks who understand what we're doing. You have Worcester Community Action Council that administers it, and they get an understanding about what's going on. You have Jesse Edwards in the Youth Opportunity Office for the city. So there's a broad conspiracy around this that if money gets tight, and actually it's gone beyond Worcester, because the WIB, as you know, the Youth WIB last year voted to put some of those dollars into Southbridge and Webster and really to broaden the network. So the process is I think more important than even the dollars at times.
Well, unfortunately, when the public dollars shrink, a lot of people say, "Hey, well, why should we put tight resources into this versus that?" And it's a conversation. It's a difficult conversation. It's part of the, process. But one thing that we like to point out is that when the private sector is not hiring, it really affects low-income youth. They're the ones that have the least amount of family connections to go. I mean, you talk to a lot of people about where they started with their first jobs, and it's because someone, in their family was connected with someone else and could pick up the phone and give a call and, hey, can you take someone on for the summer? Do you have any work? And so those relationships, those informal kind of network, if you will, help middle, upper class kids, kids from wealthier families. And so it's the lower incomes that really suffer. So what tends to happen, as research shows, is that kids that don't learn how to the values of work and understanding the workplace and those skills that are so foundational to success in whatever job you go out there, they don't learn those in their formative years, their teen years. All of a sudden, they're behind the boat when they go looking for a job when they're older, and their employment actually lags into adulthood. So you talk about breaking the cycle of violence. Right. If you don't want to be paying for someone next year and beyond with public support, maybe you ought to embrace youth employment as a public investment, because it can help to break that. And for those again just tuning in, it's Frank Kartheiser with us from Worcester Interfaith. Frank, we're going to take a turn for a bit a lighter conversation here. We talked about first jobs and about people starting in jobs. And so Sean has a little game we're going to play with you here. And you can actually, I don't think that's going to
They probably won't reach. We'll share it again. So one of the games we like to play with our guests is guess the real job of the celebrity. So I've got a celebrity here I'm about to give you, and I'll give you 3 possible jobs that celebrity held prior to becoming a celebrity.
And there's a prize involved.
Jeff's got the surprise.
It's a coffee. I don't want to ruin it, but it's a coffee mug.
So it's important that you get the right answer here.
Well, you've got my interest now with that mug.
Well, you're going for the mug.
I'm good.
All right. So this celebrity is I think Jeff's got an impression of this guy, Sylvester Stallone.
Yay! See, the cold is throwing it right
Yeah,
out.
that's the cold. We'll blame the cold.
Yeah.
So was Sylvester Stallone a doll factory worker?
What do you mean the doll don't have no arm?
Where he'd make Barbie dolls. He was on an assembly line. Was he a projectionist, a movie projectionist at a silent film theater?
What do you mean I can't talk during this movie? Hey! See, that's Sylvester Stallone being the projectionist.
Ah,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah, my name sounds so. Hey.
Or was Sylvester Stallone a lion cage cleaner? So think it over, and
Well, that's not a lot of thinking. I'm tempted for the Barbie thing, but I'm not going. I'm going with the lion. I'm going with the Lion King.
You have earned yourself a mug, my friend.
Kidding me? I don't
Yep.
even like that mug.
so
Especially when it's used.
Yeah,
according
we
to
never said it was a new mug. That's true.
according
That's
to
true.
BusinessInsider.com, he was a lion cage cleaner that cleaned up for a traveling circus. So.
I need some more handy wipes over here, huh?
Hey, Frank, what was your first job?
Glad you asked that, Bob. My first job, my dad got me a job in my neighborhood working with an asphalt company. So we were doing parking lots and driveways and.
That's real work.
Yeah, it was real work. And I had to work extra real because it was my dad's friend that I was working
Right,
for.
you don't want to let down the.
And I have 7 siblings, so
So if you
I
messed
had
up,
to-
there was someone thinking.
Oh,
I imagine that would
man.
be a pretty hot summer that you spent there.
Asphalt, when you put asphalt down, it's 400 degrees.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was.
A good set of work boots, I imagine, was in your cards for that
yeah.
summer.
And you don't want to have steel-toed boots. No, you just, that metal will cook your toes, yeah. So it was a real job, and it was a great way to learn about the world of work. Going to your point too, Jeff, from before, people talk about college, the importance of college, about how much money you're going to make later on. Mm-hmm. The statistics are all coming out now. If you can get a job in high school, those folks who get those jobs are going to earn more money over their lifetime than a young person who doesn't have a job that early on. So the numbers are showing the importance of this stuff. And I was lucky. My dad, not only had those connections, but could get me a job. So many folks, so many young people don't have those connections.
Right.
And as you know, our large businesses and companies in Worcester that we thought would be a good resource, they use the summer jobs for youth as perks for their employees, which makes sense, but it leaves a group of young people out of the loop. And so again, we've got to really say a lot for UMass Memorial, hiring 200 plus young people into the healthcare field so they get a chance to not only work but learn about that. It's a great thing for
And they've really
Worcester.
developed quite a pathway for young people that they also have